when we graduated, I said, well, what are you going to do with your life? Because I already had my truck. I was going to hit it big. I said, what are you going to do? He goes, well, I have a lawnmower and a weed eater. And I have a pregnant girlfriend.
Yep.
I said, oh boy, that's a big one. And he looked at me and he goes, well, I guess I'm going to go start doing lawns. And I thought, oh my goodness, well, it is what it is.
Yep.
This guy's got like 15 crews right now, got contracts up and down the valley of California with Walmart, Walgreens, counties, all the counties got contract. This man's a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
And he had a weed eater and a lawnmower.
Yep.
Welcome to the Roll Up and Roll Out podcast. Sit down with blue-collar business owners and inspired entrepreneurs to get the industry insights from the leaders that grow our local communities and learn how to scale your business. Regardless of GED, these people know how to GSD. Here is your host, Paul Childers. Let's get to work.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Roll Up and Roll Out, a podcast highlighting blue-collar business owners that may or may not have gotten their GED, but they all know how to get shit done. So today we've got Thomas Traphagan on with us. And Thomas, I just wanted to introduce you and give you a chance to just tell us a little bit about who you are, but more so, what got you started on your journey of business ownership.
Okay. I'm, like you said already, I'm Thomas Traphagan. I live in northeastern California, and I have a small trucking company. I have 2 farms. I have an RV park on a lake over here, and we have a flour mill, and we have North State Poultry. So we have about 5-6 different businesses that I have here, and small businesses. But to get to the point to where it kind of started at a very young age, because I never did want to work for anybody. I've always enjoyed the idea of, if I'm going to go broke, I'm going to do it my way, not let somebody else break me. So it even goes back, the first time I ever got a speeding ticket, or not a speeding ticket, it was a scale ticket when I was 14 years old up in Oregon hauling Christmas trees with a semi, an old 1974 International cab over. I pulled in, rainy day. My father was sleeping in the back, and they pulled me in the scale. He was sleeping, and the guy came up and he says, hey, he says, you got a logbook? I said, no. He says, you got a bill of lading? I said, I don't know what that is. And he said, do you have a license? I said, no, sir. He says, how old are you? I said, I'm 14. And he kind of stepped back. He says, you got somebody in that truck? I said, yeah, my dad's sleeping, but he's tired. He says, well, park it over there and have him come in. Anyway, he went in and he came out without a ticket. And I guess my father told him, he says, if I'm tired as can be, so that boy can drive just as well as anybody else out here. So he let me go. We got in that truck and I drove about half an hour. And you can imagine a 14-year-old, I thought I lost my whole future, sweating hands and everything. And my father had a talk with me right at that point. He says, Tom, he says, if you're going to let people tell you what you can and can't do in this life, he says, you're not going to get very far. Mm-hmm. So he parked that stinking truck and had me get back in there, Southern Oregon, and I drove it into San Bruno. And that taught me kind of a big lesson, because I thought they were going to shut me down at 14 years old. But needless to say, at 16 years old, day after I turned 16, my mother took me down. I went to DMV and I took my semi truck. So I know a lot of these guys are getting their licenses at 25 and 21 stuff. I had received it. I've never received any other than a Class A license in my time. Anyway, I did the trucking, and I bought my own truck at 18, ran it, didn't do too well. This was back in the 80s. Yeah, 80s. And I tried to pay my way through college, and of course that was tough. Everybody knows how that is. So I wanted to start up a Christmas tree farm. So now I had the trucking. I wanted a Christmas tree farm, but I thought, how am I going to do that? Because I don't know anything about Christmas trees, but I want to buy the property. So I went and started going to the wrecking yards, and I found an old dump truck that was in a wrecking yard, bought it very cheap down there in Stockton. I went to some farmer. He had a backhoe and an old dozer. So I went into the construction business. I took that thing. It took me a year to fix everything up. And I went and found a piece of property, 18 acres up in Washington, loaded everything up, hauled it up there, and started my Christmas tree farm. Well, I don't know if anybody on here knows, but when you're in Washington, there's 180 inches of rain happen the first year. Remember, I'm a California kid. I couldn't get over that rain. I couldn't even mow a lawn without it raining. So I did that for about a year and a half, and I said, heck with this. So I loaded everything back up, sold the property, hauled it back down, and I sold all that equipment down in California. And I said, what am I going to do? So I went and bought a limousine down in LA. And I had never been around a limousine, nothing. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go buy a limousine, go up to Lake Tahoe, and I'm going to be like a taxi. So I went and got my business license. I went down and bought the limousine. Matter of fact, this is funny. A lot of people probably wasn't even around when this happened. But I was down there in the middle of LA, and everything was smoking, burning, and I couldn't understand it. Here's a 20-some-year-old kid driving down LA. I was like, man, that must have been a big fire. I went into a donut shop, got me a little donut, seen some guys saying hi to him and everything. And man, it's really bad around here. I got on there, turned on the radio. That was the big riots. Happened the night before. Sure. So needless to say, I got out of there with the skin of my teeth. But anyway, I bought the limousine, went to Lake Tahoe, and I started hustling up runs because I also called the taxi because I was hungry. I was like, I'm needing something. And I called the taxi companies. They said, kid, I can't hire you until you're 25. So I didn't have a choice. Yeah. So I went back to my limousine and I hustled up runs until I made it. I built that business up from one limousine to 14 motor coaches, 18 drivers, an 8,000 square foot shop. I did that for about 11, 12 years. And I ended up having big motor coaches, like the Greyhound style. Yep. And it was killing me because it's not something I enjoyed. I enjoyed trucking and I enjoyed farming. And it just, I thought to myself, I was early 30s, I think by then, or mid 30s. And I said, either I'm going to do what I want in this life, or I'm going to be keeping doing this, what I don't like. So, the government pulled a deal. They made that 580 down there in Carson City. And in doing so, they took my license away for operating passengers. So everybody and their brother came up to compete. And I just wasn't interested in competing. So sold everything off there. And I bought a little piece of property, 400 acres, nothing really on. I mean, had one well, had an old single wide mobile home. It had been sitting for about 4 years. And I said, I'm buying that. So I did. And I moved up here to this place called Ravendale, California. Jesse knows where it's at. And I said, I got to start from somewhere. So I began the farming business, but I learned from ground up because I didn't have the ability to go to a bank. I didn't understand that stuff yet. So I took my irrigation, started learning about pressures, irrigating, what everything needs, what plants are better to grow, all that. I cleared ground up here. I wanted to pivot, and I had gotten my contractor's license. So that's a great thing to have. And I had a deal out here where a guy wanted me to do a bunch of work on his place, but he had no money. I said, well, you got 5 wheel lines and a whole bunch of main lines. I said, would you give me that if I did all this work? He said, sure. And so I did all the work, got all that stuff. I didn't want wheel lines. I wanted to pivot. So I said, what am I going to do? So I took it to the local pivot guy. I said, are you interested in this stuff? He says, yeah. He said, what do you want for it? And I said, I want to pivot. So he found a used pivot. I traded everything for that. Got my first pivot basically for free. And the reason I'm saying this is I had talked to a lot of kids, and it's like they don't know how to do anything. An offer is an offer. No, a piece of property, if they want $1 million, if it's only worth 500,000 to you, then you offer the 500,000. Yep. It doesn't matter. It's all in the numbers. But anyway, universe, put it out put your name out there anyway. No. And anyway, so I got the first pivot. Then I went out and found another used pivot, and I go, well, the only way I can figure out pivots is if I go take one down myself. So I took me and one of my sons, went up, took apart a pivot, came down here, and we put it back up. And so then we ended up with 2 pivots. Then I needed a house. Well, the mobile home that we had was a single wide mobile home. I'm not really a big mobile home person, but I wanted a real house. So this house came up down in Susanville, 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but I don't live in towns. So I hauled it up here. It was built in 1920 or 1925 or something.
Yep.
Well, my wife's over there saying 1929. And I had it moved up here, set it myself, had the guy drop it down on my foundation and stuff. Been living here ever since.
Yep.
And so I got this house for $2,050. I had so little money that I went in with two envelopes to the county. One had $2,050 and the other one has $2,500 just in case somebody bid. And I asked the lady, he says, nobody wants to do what you're doing. So I handed her the lower amount just so I could have enough money to get this done. Anyway, so we had the farm. From that point, we had 2 pivots. Now I start getting into more equipment and stuff. I had the truck when I sold off the bus company, and that is the first Pete. Jesse Bounds will tell you that was the first Pete. He came down and bought that for me because I had got it, so I didn't want to start. I was hauling hay and stuff, and I needed to buy the pipe for that pivot that I was talking first pivot. So, and get all that going. And he had something he had in mind. So he bought that old truck, hauled it home, and I went out and was able to finish my project here. But yeah, I've always owned the truck. So in the middle of all of what we're talking about, I ran a truck. At least I had one of my own. Then I got into fires. So I've done fires for 26 years. I went and got me a dozer, and that helped me build what I have. So I had to go out and fight fires with dozers for 26 years. I finally got tired of it last year and sold it. And then I went out and bought a couple newer trucks with that money. Getting very bureaucratic anymore. But did that. And that kind of helped expanded me into all these other things. An RV park happened to come up, and it wasn't the amount of money that I was able to get into it. It was the way I was able to get into it because I knew the person owned it. We had a friendship. I was able to get into that place. It wasn't that I just went down to a bank and said, I need $1 million.
Yep.
I had to make deals because I didn't have that $1 million, and the bank wasn't going to talk to me about that way. So I was able to buy the RV park. We ended up buying another piece of property down here, another 440 acres down by Standish, and bought that. And in one year, we were able to flatten everything out, throw a couple other pivots, but I didn't do it the old-fashioned way. I called up the pivot guy and I said, I want 2 brand new pivots and I want them set up to my phone. I know what they're doing, where they're at. So I did it differently than when I started. And the only reason I say that is because people go, well, where do I start at? Well, I want a pivot. Well, I go buy a brand new pivot. Well, that's not the way I had to do it. No, I had to do it the old-fashioned way, and one piece at a time. The first pivot I got, it finally broke, and I didn't even go look at it. I went and ordered a new one, but I'm in a different place now than I was then.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think it's important to highlight the fact that, the one thing that kind of just stands out to me as I'm listening to you here is like, you didn't hesitate to make a decision when you wanted to do something. It's like, you were like, all right, I want to go do this. So then you just did it, and you went out where it's, everybody talks about how much information is available to people nowadays. And part of me believes that because of that, we also have information paralysis where we have all of this stuff and we just sit there and we just go, I don't know what I should do. When really, you're almost better off just getting rid of the stuff and just going, you know what? I want to go start my business. I'm going to go out of town. I'm going to file my paper. Then I'm just going to go figure it out.
Yeah. One thing that everybody's always taught me, no matter all the business that I started, they go, oh my gosh, you're not going to make any money doing that. And I've been able to pull out a living from it and keep growing. So that's what I see. A lot of the kids come up and I try to talk to them, try to get them excited about, don't be worried about where you're starting. Just have that goal way out in the future. If you want 1 pivot, you want 10. If you want, whatever your goal is, expand it and then dig in, because if you don't start something, you don't know where it's going to end. And sometimes it takes a while before you start knowing people, who to go talk to, what are the, between farming, trucking, it takes a while. You don't just jump in and start making it. It takes some time. And so I get very frustrated with people that just look at it and they keep thinking, they go, I really want to do it. I really want to do it. And they don't ever go do it. I've never starved to death. I'd come close, but I've always had food. I've always been able to stay warm enough. I remember days when I would be sitting there in a pickup and I stayed night in a pickup just because I wanted to stay warm. But it all works its way out. It's not the end. It's just the beginning. So I think that's very important. And I think what you're doing is big, because nobody starts with just everything. That's what everybody sees. It's like, you got this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, but you still have a struggle. Like Jesse was talking about the other day, a guy had 2,000 rooms or something, and 200 of them was empty. Man's got a problem.
Yep.
10%, vacancy. Well, you want to, hey, this guy's got 2,000 rooms. Yeah, but he's got problems too. And you keep growing. And I like that idea. We've done a lot. We've built buildings out here. We got another building going up down at the other farm. And we're always taking that chance. One thing that I think I already told you, you already know it, is that I'm learning now more of, it's the book work. It's the having your office make sure that all the accounting is correct, so you can make those smarter decisions. Because what do you guys say? Farm fingers or
Farmer math.
Yeah, farmer math. Yeah, I'm nothing but farmer math, because my wife will clean up notes for me for months just because I'm trying to figure something out. And I won't even, a month later, I don't even know what I was figuring out. But, I'm always figuring that out, farmer's math. So I need to go beyond that. But I love doing what we do. And we're expanding so much between the RV park, between the farms, between the buildings, between the flour mills that we're doing. We're putting in a freezer, frozen dough department.
Yep.
So these are all on the farm. We're not doing it we're doing it on the farm. So we're starting a 60 or a 40 by 100 foot building down there. We're starting a brooding house because my wife's doing the North State poultry. So we're bringing in egg production and processing down there. And we're always, there's something always going on. You're never going to get bored.
Yep.
I got guys come in and go, what do you do? And I'm like, I take them for a tour of the farm, and it's like, yeah, there's more than what you see here. And it's all started from scratch. But the thing is I don't have to have 100 trucks. I want to see where it goes, because you start with 1, then you start with 2, then you start with 3. Well, then you go from 3, make sure everybody knows it's true about always keep your vehicles odd. So then the next step would be going up to 7, and then you bring in the mechanics, you bring in the more office people and do all that. And then you got to go to 11 or something like that. But anyway, I don't know if it stays at 3 trucks or 2 or 3 trucks, I'm fine. But if something comes along that says, Tom, you're making money, then I'll go get those trucks. Let them make money. When they stop making money, toss the trucks.
No.
It's not, you might have this dream with me, I want to be the big guy on the totem pole. I don't care. I don't even care what I'm driving. I had to go buy a vehicle last week, and the guys there at the showroom was like trying to show me something fancy. I'm like, dude, I need to get from point A to point B.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Keep it simple, and I've enjoyed what I've done, and I see a future of many different ways and directions. We have a lot of kids. We've got 8 children, 7, 11, and I got 8 grandkids right now. Now, some of them might want to take it over. Some of them might not. Like I tell my wife, I won't be around, so I don't care. It doesn't matter. This is my life. I'm playing my game.
Yep.
And I hope maybe they won't take the chance that I have. That's fine. But this is what I enjoy doing. So if somebody wants to go into the tree cutting business, then go get a saw, Oh, I got a story for you. I had a friend in high school. Good friend. We used to go race up there on Santa Fe. I don't know if you ever heard that. They're down in Modesto. I grew up in Modesto, California. And we used to go race cars and stuff out on Santa Fe. And anyway, that guy there, when we graduated, I said, well, what are you going to do with your life? Because I already had my truck. I was going to hit it big. I said, what are you going to do? He goes, well, I have a lawnmower and a weed eater. And I have a pregnant girlfriend.
Yep.
I said, oh, boy, that's a big one. And he looked at me and he goes, well, I guess I'm going to go start doing lawns. And I thought, oh, my goodness, well, it is what it is.
Yep.
This guy's got like 15 crews right now, got contracts up and down the valley of California with Walmart, Walgreens, counties, all the counties got contract. This man's a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
And he had a weed eater and a lawnmower.
Yep.
I
was just talking to another guy that he basically the same thing. He goes, got out of high school, was working through high school. He goes, I came back from the military, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And he goes, I had a Ford Fusion and I had a lawnmower. And he goes, I went around and I just started carrying that stupid mower around in the trunk of that Ford Fusion and mowing people's lawns. And now he's up to 8 or 9 employees, I think. And he's kind of the same thing. Now he's scaling this like upscale lawn care service. So it is just kind of look around. What the heck do I have? I know myself as I've grown, there have been times where, as you grow, you don't have money coming in and I go, oh shit, I've got a trailer. I guess I'll go haul junk for some people here for the weekend because I've got a fan. So you just got to figure it out. It's just a breaks.
That's right. And then you start learning because I remember him telling me, he goes, I said, well, how do you go there once a month or something? He goes, no. He says, I got to go there like sometimes once a week or stuff. I said, well, what do you do? Fertilize? He says, yeah, they get fertilizer for free. I said, how can you make money on fertilizer? He said, oh, I tripled my work. He says, if I give them free fertilizer on their grasses, that grass grows that much faster. I'm down there mowing it even more. They need me.
Yep.
So it's start learning the businesses and where the money is, and plus you got to be happy doing what you're doing because you're not going to expand anything unless you're not having a good time.
Exactly.
You're going to have bad days, but in the whole thing, you got to have some fun doing it, building a business or doing things, learning, but ready to be willing to fail. And I failed so many times. I'm tired of failing, but I just keep getting back up because I've done it so much. I'm used to it, and then you hit it another direction.
Well, it's kind of funny, they say, to be an entrepreneur, you got to be 2 things. One of them is you got to be stubborn. The other thing is you got to be stupid, right? And most of the time, it's just the fact that we're both, and we take our lumps and we get back up on our feet and we just kind of keep plodding away. But there's simplicity in that way of life as well, because it allows you to you have the freedom to just be who you were meant to be, I think, and create. And at the end of the day, I think it's that ability to just create something out of nothing that really probably keeps all of us coming back.
Well, yeah. And I told the kids this a lot too. And this is my kind of theory. When you start a business, don't start it for the money. Start it because there's something you're going to give to people that they need first and foremost. And if I don't care if you're cutting the grass because they need someone cutting the grass, whatever, but do it for that first. Then the money will begin starting to show up because you're going to start understanding what the people need, what they'll pay for and stuff. But you need to at least know that you're going to give something back. I've talked to too many people that they'll start a business. They're like, well, all they're talking about is like, I'm making $1 million in this. This is what I'm going to make. That's fine. But if you're not giving back to the people, that business ain't going to make it.
Yeah.
So I think that's real important because it's just like our flour mill. I want to feed the people. I love getting pictures from some of our customers and that big old piece of bread sitting in the middle of their table. And I know that it came from our farm.
Nope.
That's cool. And so that got us contracts into Bake Mark, nationwide distribution, facility and stuff. So all that stuff starts coming around, but it doesn't happen overnight. So very important. Just like what you guys are doing, that's why I find it so intriguing because it's so important. As I'm doing all these different businesses and stuff, I had nobody to sit there and say, Tom, don't do that because you'll make a mistake, but you'll do that because you'll be successful. I had to go out and try it, find out what I'm wrong and why I'm right, So that's what I hope people will start doing. I love it when I see new businesses.
Yeah. And I'm in a couple different groups, as well. And the neat part about what I do working with, lending and financials and credit and stuff is you get to meet a lot of people, and sometimes you meet them at their worst, but at their worst, they still have that almost like laser focus that things are going to be okay no matter what, and you're sitting there looking at stuff with them and you're like, man, like this is rough. And they're going, we'll figure a way to get through all this stuff. And they're on to like the next thing, down the line. And it's just like, all right, I can roll with that. We'll figure it out and get, work out through here. And they're like, if we don't, and I lose everything, I guess I'll just resettle and I'll figure out how to get it all back at some point. Right?
And that's the way you have to go about it. Yeah. We're only here for a short time. So let's kick it in the rear and see where it goes. And I talked to you not very long ago about an issue that I'm having. Well, I'm going to be taking care of that problem. But after that problem is solved, I need to know how not to get into that problem again. So it's just a learning experience for me. That's all it is. Last year I lost my stepdad and my father. My father lived here for 7 years on the farm. We built a little cabin for him and did all that. And last year, Father's Day, he passed away. And same with my stepdad. He passed away. I had to stay down and take care of my mom for a while. And I thought about it. My wife and I took off. They go, we have a lot of businesses, but it's all relative. You got to go take care of business, take care of your family, and business will come around. And don't be willing to fail. I've done so much. It ain't an issue anymore. And don't let me get by. I want to make sure. Did you see that? What was it when we went to Washington? Did you the documentary?
I don't know what it's about.
You didn't see that? Because there's a documentary about us that we went and did the convoy a couple years ago in Washington. And I want to make sure because people could maybe take a look at it or whatever. But that was a life-changing event for my wife and I both. We left here as soon as they said they were doing it, going to Washington. It was about after the COVID thing and all that stuff. And one thing I always had on my list to do was to travel the country and meet people. Well, holy cow. That opportunity came up that we were going to go to Washington. So I got in the semi truck. We drove down towards LA, hooked up with it. We did that for 36 days. We went into Washington and we were in a documentary in Japan on that NHK, kind of like their RPBS in Japan. And then they had in some movies back in where you're at. Are you in Pennsylvania?
I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay. So they started at Pennsylvania, but they put some in theaters. It was a documentary. I'm going to come up with the name here in a second, but they took a bunch of us truck drivers, and I was a truck driver farmer, and they did a little documentary on why we were doing what we were doing and what we were up to. And of course, I ended up being in the largest convoy in the United States ever. I was able to see all the country. The people were amazing. They were all like us. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the American people. And these people, everybody out there doing businesses, working for people, whatever, they were just the happiest. I could go into any of their homes and just sit down and have dinner with them. They were fantastic.
What's that? Convoy of Hope?
It was People's Convoy.
People's Convoy, okay.
Yeah, People's Convoy. And anyway, I sent you a thing to it, but it was...
I'll go back and look.
Go back and look. And I'm trying to think of the name of it. But anyway, it shows the drivers and stuff going back, and it was pretty interesting. What they didn't show is when we went into Washington, D.C. But I'm telling you, the people in the United States, anywhere you go, it has been an opportunity of a lifetime to do that and meet them all. And know that they all have hope and dreams. And it was fantastic. Until I went into D.C. We went into D.C. for like 10 days. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah. That was kind of like the truckers up in Canada, I think, that went to Vancouver. We did around wherever it was, and it just kind of turned into a mess.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could see CNN, MSNBC all had pictures of us, my wife and I, but they were not telling the truth. So that's a whole nother story.
Which that is a bright name, but yeah.
Yeah. But that was an experience of a lifetime, and we enjoyed that. And that's something that I had on my list. And did I ever think that I was going to do it that way? No, I thought I need to make enough money for a fifth wheel and make enough money to go travel and do all that. Didn't happen that way. Just like business. You start a business, get the lawnmower. Where's this taking me? Well, we'll make $100 today. We'll see if we can make 200 tomorrow. You don't know where that's going.
Yeah.
Pretty soon there's contracts to be had. And it just things change all the time. And you'll start learning where those changes occur. And just like it happened for us, when me and Andrea looked at each other and go, let's go. I get to see the country. I get to meet the people. I met hundreds of thousands of people on that. I was able to see Tennessee and Washington and all of those. You know, we were there for a reason, but we got to see all that. And I just let it go. I just let it take me where it's going to go. Same with the businesses that I have. You know, if the flour mill does great, if the farm does great, we're going to go in that direction and let everything start growing and keep growing.
But it never would have started if you wouldn't have just jumped in and did it.
You need to just jump in and do it and be willing to fail. But this world's made for nobody. If it was that easy, everybody'd be doing it. You've heard that saying before.
Absolutely. You know, and I think that's even more highlighted now with some of these younger generations, you know, and that's one of the things I just keep reiterating with my kids. And I'm married into a farm family. So, you know, in the summertime or spring, you know, one of the things that my daughter does now that she's 11 is she goes out and she helps grandpa rock pick, you know, because and she goes out and it's hot and it's miserable, it's dusty, it's dirty. But at the end of the day, when he calls again that evening going, hey, Cora, you going to come back out and rock pick tomorrow? Yep, I'll be out there. I'll pack my lunch. And off she goes again, right? And it's just humans need to have that hard work piece of it and knowing that, yeah, the work kind of is going to suck sometimes. It's not going to be the most fun, but you meet people, you learn new skills, you learn a lot about yourself, and you're not doing anything bad, right? Like you're not... Yeah. And really, that's what business ownership really is just you learn about yourself, you take a risk, you meet a lot of cool people. Whether you fail or not, that's not the important piece. It's the fact that you hit and you prove to yourself that you can get out of your comfort zone and put something together, you know, and then you're not afraid the next time to go and throw something else together if that first one did fail, you know.
Yeah. You know, exactly. I believe if you want to do something, if you want to be a farmer, then dress like a farmer and go hang out with farmers. Start learning. You don't sit there and wait. If you want to be a mechanic, then dress like a mechanic. Get the equipment, and start going to work. You know, I mean, you got to start digging in.
No,
absolutely. My wife was going to say something.
Oh, well, I was going.
You got to get into the picture, though.
I've been listening to you. One of the things that it is hard to explain this, but one of the things that I think is important, especially with people our age and, you know, they're older and they look at it as time has passed them by and, you know, am I crazy for doing this? And I have looked this up and I enjoyed watching how Walt Disney built Disneyland. You know, he was our age when he started that.
Our age, not yours.
Yeah, our age.
Yeah.
He was 52 years old. We were starting a expansion on our farm when we were 52, and everything was COVID starting. It was very bad, and everything seemed like the wrong time to do this. This is absolutely the wrong time. But in that time, we saw our sons work together in ways that they would never have gotten the opportunity because they had to leave other jobs. Mm-hmm. Things came together that wouldn't have necessarily come together. And when I think a lot of this for me on anything is it's a spiritual aspect also. You know, you have to have faith that when you are given an impression and an idea and you know, you can sit on it and let it pass you by, or you can take what I call my Heavenly Father saying, hey, I got something I need you to do and get to it. And when it gets put on your heart in a way like that, you can't help but go with it. And then if it's something that gives you joy or something you enjoy, it is okay. you can work through the hard times when, like you were saying, like your daughter going, oh man, I'm going out to the Dust Bowl to work. But there's joy in the dust because you're there with your family. And that is the whole thing, is that you're creating something with your families, your children, you're teaching them, and you're bringing in new generations, because this is becoming lost. We are becoming a land of government. Here's your government job and your government pension.
Yep.
And this aspect of what we're doing is not easy. We're showing our children it is not easy, but it's worth it. And they're finding joy in the travel.
Yeah, the one boy, the second to the youngest, it was funny because my wife was so worried about him coming home from where they had shut down their company and stuff. So he was out of a job at the COVID time.
Lineman.
And he came home and he says, well, I'm going to go see some of my old friends. And of course, my wife was worried he was going to be, down partying or whatever, because he's early 20s. And I said, well, don't worry about that. I said, let's see what happens. Well, they came back and we were trying to get 400 acres prepared for planting and stuff. That kid came in around 9:30 and just dusty from head to toe. And I said, you heading to town? He goes, no, I'm taking a bath and go to bed. I said, see you at breakfast. Yep. So, it's fun just to give it a shot. And that little girl picking up those rocks, she's there. Like my wife said, the family, you're doing something with your hands. You're building something. You're helping somebody. It's just an amazing feeling. I just love it.
It's the joy in the dust. There's joy in the dust because she's with her grandfather and he's teaching her something, and it's working. It's, this isn't easy, but we're together and we're going to have this memory. And when things are tough in her older life, she's going to look back on that and she'll have a place to dig down into because she was given that. That's a gift.
Yeah.
That's all. And that.
No, you're 100% right on that. And that's, one of the things that I've taken away, jumping in and starting my own business as well, is like, it definitely hasn't been the easiest thing I've ever done, and I get a lot of people that always question why I left the jobs that I left, because they were very good paying jobs for companies, but I wasn't content. I wasn't happy. I wasn't at peace doing what I enjoyed doing, which really is, I enjoyed solving problems and I enjoyed building relationships and getting to know people. And I just wasn't being able to do that where I was. And so this has really allowed me the freedom to do both of those things and bring value and educate people on an area of life that I think just gets glossed over far too often, and people get in trouble, get buried, and then, the light goes out.
That's why it's so valuable what you guys are doing and what you're doing. Because I'll listen to you talk on that, Jesse. Dang it. I just want to take you and go, look, I want a session every day because I want to work through this stuff and learn, make sure I'm making the right decisions. Because what you're giving to people, it's something very needed. Now we got to figure out where is the money to be created by doing that, because that's everything. I mean, I think people can do that with farming, with what you're doing, with businesses, anything. Because I know when I came to farming, ain't nobody going to talk to me about how to grow something. And I was like those people that came up to me and they go, oh, you raised hay. Well, I need some horse hay. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but that's not my market. My market is dairy hay, and it's organic dairy hay. So I package it a certain way. I cut it a certain time. You don't feed my hay to horses.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have issues. So I didn't know that when I started. But there's market for every single thing. You got small bells, big bells, little bells, round bells, all this different stuff. And you got to learn what's my market. And that's where it led me to, was the organic Petaluma market.
Yeah. Well,
so and every business is that way.
Yep, you're right. And it's just one foot in front of the other, and then eventually you'll get to the end of it. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the conversation with you, and the fact of the matter is starting a business really isn't that much different now from what it was back when you were, growing up either. It's just have to do it. And it's all about, honestly, if there's one piece of advice I can give anybody that's young, that's starting a business, it's build relationships, dive in, and don't take the risks. And don't get to a spot where you're relying on lending to get you out of a hole, because it's going to make things worse. I think that happens so often where people use lending as a crutch, when really all they should be doing is going out and just making do with the things that they can find and kick up. And sometimes just that relationship piece that you talked about, throwing a number out there to somebody on something, working it right is all you need.
Yeah. And be willing to sit there and go in front of people. If you want to be a successful farmer, then don't hang out with the guys that all they do is grow weeds. I want to go make friends with the guy that has the best farm in the area. That's what I've always done. And that's what I did when I got here, because I didn't know anything. So I went to the farmers that knew what they were doing, and I started hanging out with them, talking to them, calling them on the phone. What do you think? I became friends with them. I did the same thing with the flour mill. Now I know, Bob's red mill up there. I know his son, Junior, and stuff. I know these people, but it's because I picked up that phone. I drove up to that house. I knocked on that. Hello, how you doing? Love to learn more, and it works. Don't worry about it. We're only here for a short while.
Yep.
So make it
to be productive.
Might as well. So I appreciate it and what you're doing here. I really do. So,
well, I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you jumping on. So, yeah.
Thank you.